Hello one and all, welcome back to the Indian Institute of Studies and Services, a unit of the International Studies and Services Foundation, and this is Dr. Sanya Khan with you. In this edition, we are going to discuss the Greco-Roman period, which is so very much important from the UGC NET point of view, as well as from CUET and Ph.D. entrance examinations point of view. So Greco-Roman period is actually the first official age of English literature. Okay, although it is not the pure English literature in its in its form, but actually it's the mixture of the Greek as well as the Roman literature. If we talk about the genre, then epic and tragedy were the genres which actually dominated this period, which ranged from the 9th century BC till the 5th century BC. And we have one of the most important poets of this time, that was Homer. So when we talk about Homer, who belonged actually around the 8th century BC. So how can we forget its the two sequels that he wrote, the first one being Iliad and its second sequel Odyssey, based on the famous Trojan War. Okay, so this is based on the Trojan War, the war which is actually captured in a very lucid form in the Iliad. Okay, so Iliad, which is an epic. Remember, don't get confused in the exam, because Iliad is actually an epic, not a tragedy. Okay, if there is a question, Homer's Iliad belongs to which one of the following genres? And there are options like, epic, tragedy, humor, or maybe none of the above. Okay, so the correct answer is actually epic. Don't forget this. Okay, and it has its sequel called the Odyssey. Okay, sequel to the Iliad. Now, Iliad, which was the first part. So this first part was based on the Trojan War. Okay, the war between the Greeks and the Trojans. Okay, and the second part, Odyssey, the sequel to the Iliad. Okay, here what happens that okay, here this depicts the fall of the Troy. Okay, so fall of Troy has taken place, means Troy has been the whole reign or empire of the Troys, the Trojans as we call them, they have been defeated. And so this depicts the homecoming of of the soldiers back to their countries, to their respective empires after the fall of Troy. Okay, so from both the sides, whether the winners or the losers, so they all are returning back. And so Odyssey, in English this is called Ulysses. And Ulysses, remember Tennyson, Lord Alfred Tennyson, the Victorian poet, has written poem called Ulysses. Don't forget it. Okay, so he so Tennyson takes his poem Ulysses from Odyssey. Odyssey is just in the Greek language, it's Odyssey, and in the English version it's Ulysses. Okay, so there have been various myths surrounding the journey of Odyssey, or Ulysses. So the Victorian poet Tennyson was to write a poem called Ulysses. Now here we have one more very important question. Tennyson's Ulysses is based on which one of the following texts? Okay, so it is based on Homer's Odyssey, okay, which is a sequel to the Iliad, and Odyssey depicts the fall of the Trojans. Okay, so don't forget this. And yeah, that's it about Homer. Now we shall move on to other authors, okay, from the same period. Remember, Homer belonged to the 8th century. Now gradually we shall move downwards towards the younger ones, and there we have a very important poets. We can see Now, when I say poets, I mean tragedy, the tragedians, okay, those who wrote the tragedies, because it was a time when tragedy actually dominated during the classical period and the Greco-Roman period. Okay, so it is tragedy which dominated the literary scene, and tragedy was actually called as poetry. Okay, the tragedians, those who wrote tragedy, were called the poets. For example, Sophocles. Okay, Sophocles, remember the Theban trilogy, where we have the most important, Oedipus Rex, which was to influence the modern day psychoanalysts like Sigmund Freud and Jacques Lacan. So let's check out the classical authors of the period here. So now we move on to the next, that is the classical period, consisting of three great tragedians, Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides. So Aeschylus is said to be the father of tragedy. Okay, so if there is a question, which one of the following is considered to be the father of tragedy, then that is actually Aeschylus, famous for his Oresteia trilogy. Oresteia trilogy is Oresteia. Oresteia trilogy, consisting of Agamemnon, liberation bearers, okay, and the Eumenides. So these are the three names of the tragedies under Oresteia trilogy. Trilogy, we all know, a collection of three books, but these three are not important. Actually, Agamemnon, we can remember this. The name is important, otherwise, the summaries and all are not required. And Oresteia trilogy. Now we have Sophocles, very important from from all the perspectives of all the entrance tests, right? Because of his famous Oedipus Rex. Okay, and as I said, Oedipus Rex is famous till date, even in the contemporary times, because of its influence on the modern day psychoanalysts. So, Oedipus Rex, write down Oedipus Rex. This is Oedipus Rex, or in Greek, or Oedipus the King. Oedipus the King, to translate it in English. Okay. Next one, the sequel, the second part is called Oedipus at Colonus. Right. So we shall write down Oedipus at Colonus. Okay. Now this is the this is the edition, means the second part, in which Oedipus confronts his own father unknowingly, okay, while on a journey, and eventually kills the father, thereby thereby proving the prophecy to be correct. Okay, so he proves the prophecy, he acts upon the prophecy without his own knowledge, and the prophecy comes to be true, that yes, Oedipus will kill his own father and marry his own mother. So in the second part, Oedipus has already has confrontations with his father, and he has killed the king, okay, father. And yes, in the previous section, Oedipus Rex, in the first part, what has happened, that Oedipus is born to the parents, Jocasta, and her husband is the king. And when he is born, there is a prophecy by the saints that he will kill his own father and marry his own mother. So what happens, that the couple, the royal couple, they take their newborn child and leave the child, in a river, as it is said, so that it can die. Okay, because if it survives, it will eventually, prove the prophecy to be correct. But what happens, that Oedipus, the child, does not die. It is taken by by a childless couple who raise him up, and eventually when he grows up, around, it is said that he is in his early 20s, when he confronts the father in the second part, Oedipus at Colonus, and kills the father. Then comes the third part, okay, wherein he is captured. Okay, he is arrested, imprisoned, and but the queen, okay, unknowingly, without knowing that he is the son, she actually eventually marries him, marries Oedipus, and thereby the prophecy comes to be true. So the last one is called Antigone. Antigone. Okay, and all these three are called the Theban trilogy. Write down Theban trilogy by Sophocles: Oedipus Rex, Oedipus at Colonus, and Antigone. Okay, these three are called the Theban trilogy. Theban. Theban trilogy. Amongst them, the most important one is Oedipus Rex, the first part. Always remember, because this is the introduction, okay, and this actually introduces the entire prophecy. And based on this, we have several modern and postmodernists who have been inspired by this, this theory, you can say, or this philosophy. This, Oedipus Rex was to become a philosophy actually, okay, in the later period of the times, and during the modern and the postmodern eras, Oedipus Rex was to inspire the modernist D.H. Lawrence, who based his novel Sons and Lovers. Don't forget, who was to base his novel, Sons and Lovers, on Sophocles' Oedipus Rex. Sons and Lovers by D.H. Lawrence. Lawrence. Okay, so D.H. Lawrence was to base, Sons and Lovers on Oedipus Rex, which then came to be known as Oedipus complex. Okay, because it is just like, Oedipus complex as defined by Sigmund Freud, the modern day psychoanalyst. Oedipus complex is just an obsession of a male child with the mother. Okay, just like we jokingly call someone mother, mama's boy. Okay, so that is just the obsession of a male child with the mother, and that is called Oedipus complex. And was this was to become the psychoanalysis theory by Sigmund Freud. Okay, which was called Oedipus complex. Oedipus complex. Oedipus complex. Why complex? Because if such an obsession is found in an adult male child, then it creates a complexity, and it makes that particular person, you can say, an imbalanced personality, and therefore a complex creature in the society. So Oedipus complex, as said and talked about by Sigmund Freud. We'll talk about it in the section of literary criticism, but this is important because since the ancient times, Sophocles, Oedipus Rex is so very much important till date. Okay, even in the postmodern sense. Now, the third one, how can we forget Medea? Medea, Medea, which is actually a tragedy in which the wife. There is a wife who kills the husband because of his extramarital affair. So the summary is not important, but Medea is a character, and she is said to be one of the first feminist characters in the history of English literature. Okay, so Medea by Euripides. uh, okay, Medea by Euripides. Write down the third one. The third of the classical tragedians or poets, okay, is Euripides. Euripides. Okay, no, it's Write down Euripides, 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 who wrote Medea, the tragedy, Medea. Okay, now this is very, very important, which is a tragedy. Remember, not an epic, not a humor, but a tragedy. And it is one of the most famous plays, okay, written in the form of a play. Obviously, all the tragedies are uh, all these tragedies are written in the forms of plays, okay, and plays or these types of dramas, okay, especially the tragedy, they were called called poetry. We'll discuss it while talking about Aristotle, okay, because it was actually he was Aristotle who defined tragedy as a poetry, okay, means there was no word like tragedy in the ancient Greek literature. It was actually a poetry, okay, there was nothing like tragedy. In the modern terms, we call it tragedy because we have defined the genres in various parts, but actually it was called poetry, okay, no tragedy. So it's a form of a poetry only, tragedy, Medea, by Euripides. Very famous play. We must remember the name of the play and the name of the author. No need to go into the depth or the summary, but this is important. But yes, Sophocles, when he wrote Oedipus Rex, then that is very important for us because it comes down to the till the postmodern era, till the contemporary times. Okay, now these we have discussed the three three tragedians or three poets, you can say, or dramatists from the classical period. Now uh, Euripides, okay, who wrote Medea. Then we discussed Sophocles for his Theban trilogy, Oedipus Rex, Oedipus at Colonus, and Antigone, and also we discussed Aeschylus. Okay, now we shall move ahead to talk about other classical authors, and slowly we'll move down to Aristotle and Plato. Okay, Plato is, both are important from UGC net point of view because there can be just one or two questions, one question, so we can't ignore it because one question means 2 marks. Okay, so yeah, we'll discuss Aristotle and Plato now. So, having discussed the Greco-Roman period as well as the classical period and the tragedians therein, we move to the new genre which was actually started by Aristophanes, called comedy. Okay, so comedy, Aristophanes is said to have started the new genre of comedy along with two others called Pindar and Menander. So about Pindar and Menander we'll talk about, but let's see Aristophanes first. So these are the classical comedians. Okay, write down, these are the classical comedians. First one is Aristophanes. Aristophanes. Okay, for his The Cloud. The Cloud is a comedy, okay, which is a very brutal satire on the philosopher Socrates, okay, and it is said that Aristophanes was sentenced to death for satirizing, such a great philosopher Socrates. But we don't know how much is it true that he was actually assassinated or killed for that. But anyhow, The Cloud, in which you find a satire on Socrates, okay. Socrates has been a philosopher, okay, a classical philosopher. After writing The Cloud, he wrote The Frogs. Okay, again, The Frogs, where you find the real life characters. The real life characters means the two tragedians whom we discussed, Aeschylus. You'll find Aeschylus here in this, okay? Aeschylus, Aeschylus, and these two characters are very much there in this writing, Aeschylus and Euripides. Okay, so these two characters have a conversation, repartee, okay, means dialogue with each other in the frogs. Okay, now cloud is important because of the fact that Aristophanes wrote the cloud as a satire against satire on a great, seemingly great philosopher of his time, Socrates, and it is said that it was highly controversial, which led to the assassination or the death sentence of Aristophanes. Aristophanes is said to be, you can say, he is the father of comedy. Okay, because he was the first person to introduce comedy at a period of time during the classical period, when actually tragedy was the most dominant genre, right? So, and even if you see the philosophers of the time, like Aristotle and Plato, they were highly they highly used to sponsor tragedies, okay, rather than comedies, right? So the royalty, the aristocracy, the intelligentsia, means the powerful sections of the society, they all were highly interested in tragedy only, and they used to sponsor these plays, okay, in their township, and they openly announced that, yeah, it is actually tragedy and not any other genre that they are interested in. But it was a very challenging period for Aristophanes and other two comedians to emerge as the rule breakers. So they were obviously not the favorites of the royalty and the aristocracy and the intelligentsia. Okay, now we have the second one, called Menander, who, now remember, Menander is very important because he is said to be the one to start the stock comedy, okay, which later came to be known as the comedy of manners. Okay, so when we discuss comedy of manners, in which you have stock characters, or stock characters in the sense that they are not round characters but just flat characters. Okay, an example, a very famous example, is Dr. Ben Jonson. Okay, Ben Jonson's humors. Okay, so if a person is like there is a person who is always sad and melancholic, so he has that melancholic humor, and if there is another person who is always choleric, okay, so he has that choler. So Ben Jonson's the classification of humors. This is a modern form, or you can yeah, modern form of Menander's stock characters. Okay, so let's write down number two, Menander. Okay. Now there is a controversy here, because some people use it as Der or Dar. Okay, but we shall use as Dar only. And remember, Menander is known for his stock characters. In the modern times, these stock characters were to form the comedy of manners. Write down. Okay, this was the initial stage towards the formation of comedy of manners. Okay, we'll talk about comedy of manners while talking about the various genres of drama. Comedy of manners. So, who initiated comedy of manners? There can be a question. It is a very potential question. So, it was actually Menander. Next, the third one we have is, and remember, in comedy, if you read the comedy of manners, you'll find the characters to be highly urban. Okay, urban, and living in the cities, or at least the townships. Okay, and they're highly fashionable, full of fashion and grandiosity. But don't forget that it was actually started in the classical period. There is nothing modern about comedy of manners. Okay, but eventually, the modern authors, the medieval authors like Ben Jonson, as well as the modernists, they started taking inspiration from Menander's comedy of manners. Okay, so it was actually Menander who initiated writing comedy of manners in the form of stock characters during the classical period. Okay, now the next one is Pindar. Now, Pindar is very important, okay, and he needs a lengthy discussion. So I'm erasing this over here. Uh, to discuss Pindar. Pindar. Okay. He, why is he important? He is actually, a Pindar is important for writing odes. Okay, odes, ODE. And how can we forget the type of ode based on his name? Okay, Pindaric ode. Okay, we'll discuss about that also. Pindaric ode, Pindaric. Pindaric odes are taken from the name of Pindar, and he was the one to initiate the three parts: strophe, anti-strophe, oh, PHE, and the last one, epode. So these are the three stages in which an ode is written. So don't forget, ode as started by Pindar, and a form of ode which takes its name after the name of this poet called Pindar from the classical age. It was Pindar who, who actually established a formal pattern of writing poem. Poem here does not mean tragedy, means poem in the real sense. By classifying the entire poem, means the entire ode, into three different parts: strophe, antistrophe, and epode. Okay, we'll discuss about it in the upcoming section. Now, till then, just remember these, and we shall talk about two important philosophers, Aristotle and Plato, and that will be an end of the classical period. Okay. Remember, Sophocles' Oedipus Rex is important. Okay, Medea, the name and the name of its author, Aeschylus is important. These three are very important: Pindar, Menander, and uh, Aristophanes, right? And obviously, if we go back to the Greco-Roman period, then we can't forget Homer, obviously, right? So see you in the next segment, and if there are any problems, you are welcome to contact us. And this was Dr. Sanya Khan from the Indian Institute of Studies and Services, where you study